That's clearly got to be me. I'm the most cheerful of all of us.
Previously on Basement Discourse, the boys talk about spoilers, and Jace ruins Fight Club for everybody.
Hey! Welcome to Basement Discourse. I'm the guy with the 0 to 1,000 ping all at once. We have Jace up in the top. We have Brady on the other top and me on the bottom as always.
I'd like to point out that your ping will never be 0.
Well,
that's science.
What if I broke the internet?
Even a loopback is still above 0 ping.
What if I broke my laptop?
Then you're not pinging anything.
Exactly.
So that would be
zero ping.
No, that is not how ping works. Ping requires a response. There is a round trip time.
Could it be so low it's immeasurable?
No, you can still measure it.
What if it
like
got that good?
I can literally measure from my computer to my server right next to my computer.
Well, that was interesting. How good is that? Welcome to Basement Discourse, everybody, where we talk about ping and how it works and how it doesn't work.
Wait, I just slapped my desk and it muted me.
Whoa,
that was heaps good.
It's like,
oh, you're still muted.
Damn it! I've already swore twice on the episode where we were going to keep it all PG. Bleep those, Brady. Now go. And by go, I mean do it in the past.
The editing that you've been forcing me to do, that one with the KJ episode where you're like, and make it do this, and make it do this.
It was brilliant, though. It worked really well.
Yeah, you did great.
So today we're trying to keep it PG in the hopes that our voices reach more people, especially children across the land.
It's already not PG.
I know. Look, if we don't swear, it's PG, right? Or is it? So
you've already ruined that.
I know. Well, no, because it's bleep. If it's bleep, it's fine. You
Okay.
just assume that I said like bleep.
The problem
that
is
too.
you're relying on me to bleep, and I don't always hear swears because they're about every second word out of my mouth. So I've got to edit this and try and be conscious of something that I hear, like breathing.
Just every second sentence, just bleep me.
We should probably also put up a swear counter on each.
That's a good idea.
That is a
I'm
good
gonna count
idea.
each person.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Lowest number wins.
Dang. Is dang a swears from back in the day when you were a kid? Well,
No,
what were the things that were acceptable when you were kids as far as swears go?
Sky's the limit, baby.
I don't think we had anything. We were like a straight nothing and got away with nothing.
Got away with nothing. So you couldn't say a single thing.
Friggin'. That was about the
limit. Oh, yeah. Dang. Yeah.
It was just the like ones, 3 really. Majors, yeah.
Yeah.
FS and C.
And dog barks.
Yeah. What about B's? Barks. You couldn't say B.
I think it was context sensitive. So like
I think if you say it in like a funny way, like bruh, then it's not like actually swearing, you know?
I think
Is it?
I don't know.
We'll see.
The YouTube algorithm will work it out for us.
Yeah, I suppose. We'll wait and see.
So why are we being kid friendly?
Because this episode is about kid-friendly things. So kid-friendly approachable games, kid-friendly D&D maybe, kid-friendly anime even. Up to you guys. What are your thoughts on kid? I mean, why not anime start with? That's a pretty easy one, right?
What are you doing? Are you just rubbing your microphone?
Hold on, I knocked my mic out. Huh? Wait, what do you say?
Jace is muted. Yeah, I can hear you. Jace is muted.
Jace is muted. Yeah, right. There it is. Cool.
Yeah, games. I mean, there's all the like Crash Bandicoots, Spyro.
Well,
I know because
I think games are the easy one. I think games are the easy one. I think go to anime and stuff first. Like,
yeah, okay.
Oddly enough, I think anime actually is pretty easy. Like first
is,
one,
but
right off the bat, Ponyo. I would show that to any child any day of the week. That
I think
almost
anything from that studio, maybe
Ghibli.
60% of it is acceptable. Howl's Moving Castle's probably where you draw the line, but like a lot of the other ones are
My Neighbor Totoro, and then Spirited Away. That was like what the first anime movie I ever saw, I think, and I absolutely adored that. Like I saw it at like the age of 12, so up to about 25, I was still a child.
My daughter still watches like probably once a week Arrietty, which is another one from that studio as well. So maybe not as popular as like Ponyo, but very similar.
No, it's a big one. It just depends on what parents
isn't Arrietty
so like
newer? And that's sort of why it's less popular. I think it is. Yeah,
makes sense.
And then there's what's the flying Kiki's Delivery Service?
Kiki's Delivery Service is brilliant too.
Haven't seen that one yet.
It'll be a good one for your daughter, actually.
So that's a good collection of things. I mean, there's the obvious one, like the figures behind your head kind of speak volumes.
The shonen stuff, Dragon Ball. But even Pokemon. Then, I think it's going to come down to the parents. Because
of course.
I actually had this fairly recently. We were looking after Claire's nephew, and whilst he's allowed to watch like Game of Thrones, which I would argue probably shouldn't.
What the heck?
Yeah, but so the difference is between who's looking after him, right? Like, is it the parents who can make that call or the grandparents? So the grandparents he was left over here in their care, not in his parents' care. With his parents, he's watching stuff like Game of Thrones. When they have him, they're like, no, I had him for like 2 hours. So of course I put some anime on. And I put on the Dragon Ball Broly movie because it's on Netflix. And then, no, we're talking kid friendly. I'm going to have to bleep you. But so we started watching the Broly movie and he only got a little bit into it. And then he went back to his grandparents to watch the rest of it. And they were like, this is really violent. And I was like, oh, I mean,
your kid watches Game of Thrones, so I don't know.
It's pretty stylized violence. Like it's energy blasts and not really any blood in that particular movie. Like, I guess it just comes down to a lot of, parental rule. Like what's too much. So like,
I think
even a lot of shonen, I would say, is too revealing for a lot of parents. Like they wouldn't be cool with that. And that's shonen stuff. So.
Well, like My Hero Academia, there's the teacher that's like very seductive and whatnot.
Fairy tale.
But even thinking about it, like Dragon Ball Z could be a real problem to get a kid into, because then that kid might also check out Dragon Ball, which has some questionable content. It's a sign of the times, because as far as I'm aware, early Dragon Ball was like...
it's quite early, and it was written even earlier than that. So like when it was animated, it was written as a manga before that. Sign of the times, sign of cultural differences, bit of both, and obviously things have cleaned up since, because they've realized it does have an international audience, and they've realized what people do enjoy about it and don't. But you're not wrong. It could be problematic if they go fishing around that franchise a bit too much.
Sailor Moon.
That's
I haven't seen all of it, but from what I have seen,
had a problem with it. I don't think
it's got its violence, but it's.
Yeah. I think that's
above border.
Yeah, that one's totally fine. It's if you're an older kid watching it, you realize like those are some short skirts and some other stuff like that. But little kids are not noticing any of that. They're just enjoying it. Interestingly, the 90s one that we watched, because it's been remade a few times now, that was censored to the hell house for us.
Really?
The English one. Yeah. So like the outer sailors, by the time they came along, 2 of them were portrayed as like cousins or something like that in the English one, but they were together. They were lesbians.
Oh, wow.
And they censored the hell out of that in the English dub.
Not surprised.
Going through
90s Australia was not ready for that at 7 a.m. So
I wouldn't imagine that's even a matter of Australia. I would bet that was the US doing the dubbing and that.
And they're like 4 kids dub or something. So,
as we very well know, US isn't very friendly with that sort of stuff. unfortunately. So yeah, those are a few.
That's a
I
good
can't
one.
trying to think of shows that I would. My problem is that I like a lot of really weird anime, and with weird either comes hyper violence, like that I wouldn't deem appropriate. But I think if you're trying to get a young one into anime, starting with Studio Ghibli, or is it Ghibli or Ghibli?
I honestly think it's up to the person. I think people know what you're talking about either way. So just don't be rude.
Yeah. Either or. Yeah. Start there and sort of work your way out. And I think that's sort of a safe bet for youngins.
Yeah. It's a good starting point for your animes. That's a
Pokemon.
good idea.
Pokemon's not bad.
I did say that one before.
I think that was your implication with the.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going these guys. So yeah.
Well, yeah, it was a bit of both, but yeah, Pokemon's the obvious choice. I don't think I've ever seen anything from Pokemon that has pushed the boundaries to the point of unreasonable for kids.
Right? I don't even think even when like Ash got knocked over and hit around, I don't even think there was blood in that, if memory serves. It was like he'd have scrapes and stuff, but yeah.
And I don't think entirely anime, but the Avatar series is
Avatar.
That one's a pretty awesome one.
Awesome. Legend of Korra was aimed at an older audience, but I still think a younger one can watch it without too many dramas. But the OG one, like Avatar: Last Airbender, for sure. That's
hell yeah. Vegetarian protagonist.
yeah. That's sick. Yeah, so game-wise, I mean, there's the obvious ones, right? So we got Crash and Spyro, stuff like that. What's maybe a little less obvious and maybe a little bit more aimed at being not just a platformer?
So, one that's sort of I would recommend to kids would be Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, it has some darker themes in the sense that, Star Wars isn't inherently straightforward for kids. There is the discussion of death and those sort of ideals, but there's no blood or anything like that. Morality is purely up to the player, so you get to choose whether you're going to be good, bad, or somewhere in between. There's no profanity because Star Wars being Star Wars, they don't really use it. And if they do, it's usually within the worlds, like Princess Leia calling Han Solo a scruffy looking nerf herder.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's like made up language stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah, so
that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a complex game to pick up because it follows D&D rule set pretty strongly.
Yeah.
Like each of your attacks follows a dice roll mechanic and stuff like that. So it might be harder technically to pick up, but I think it's a good choice because it's got all those elements of Star Wars that a kid would get into. So that's probably where my first bet would be. But
well, I like the Star Wars VR saber thing as well. That's pretty awesome for kids. I think that's it's a pretty obvious one. Most things in VR are actually not bad, except for that medieval one where. But a lot of VR stuff is pretty cool, and I think that's kind of new age. But then there's obviously the older platforms are a winner. Like you're very old. Side scroller style things like we're all playing TMNT the last few weeks.
Like side scrolling beat 'em ups. Yeah.
They're an easy one to jump into. Even the Space Jam, the most recent movie, terrible. But they brought out a free game on Xbox. I think it was free on PC as well. And it was a crowd choice. So like everyone decided how the game was going to be built and like what they wanted to see in it. And it was a side scroller beat 'em up as well. And it was a pretty basic game, nowhere near what TMNT is now, but it was free and it wasn't too bad, and my kid loves it. She's 5, so she's loving playing side scrollers and doing that sort of stuff. It's easy for her to be able to do that because you don't have to move around a 3D world per se, and it's fine. somewhat killing things, but they just explode and disappear and whatever.
Yeah, it's a little different, right?
yeah.
Sonic?
Yeah.
Sonic's like it's an obvious choice though.
Yeah. All of those classics, I think, are always going to be the easy ones for
that. Brings me to Super Meat Boy. I don't know if you guys have ever played it, but it is a side-scrolling platformer.
It's fairly brutal, to be honest. I wouldn't want my kid at 5 to play it, but if you're just like a boy, and just 9 or 10 years old, that sort of thing would just be your generic everyday thing. Well, for me, like I'm just comparing myself to that age. 10
that makes sense.
Years of age in something just exploding into gore in like a 2D fun way that you just reset and keep going with.
Well,
is like similar to like a Doom explode into.
So it's a 2D platformer, like Mario Brothers and that, but it is way faster. And you play as Meat Boy, which is literally a ball of like ground beef or mincemeat or whatever. And he's trying to save his girlfriend, Bandage Girl. And it's a typical sort of Sonic style story. Bad guy kidnapped, blah. You've got to chase him. And every time you hit like a saw blade or something, you just explode into bits of meat.
Yeah.
There is, however, like death of like cartoon animals and stuff. Like it's all 2D and cartoony, but you do see some of that stuff, and that gets a bit iffy. I think age dependent is probably where that comes in.
I think so. And it's like, I don't know, like where do you draw a line with the gore and all of that when it's in 2D? Like it's obviously, if that was 3D, it would be messed up. You'd be like, no way is my kid playing this 3D
100%.
meat thing exploding with a saw. But as soon as you turn it into 2D, it doesn't look so harsh. Like
and with
the old Grand Theft Auto 2 in comparison to Grand Theft Auto 3.
But see, I still wouldn't let a kid play Grand Theft Auto 2.
I would not either. No.
I wouldn't anyway, because the whole idea is to just like be a criminal. And whilst we spoke before about, these things don't influence you as a grown-ass adult who can make choices, it's not a good idea to show your kid like, just go do all this gnarly stuff. Probably not.
I mean, and of course, we're not telling anyone how to parent. Do whatever you think you should do with your kids.
There's a reason I don't have children.
So be it. Yeah. But we're just sort of talking out loud about the things that we would either recommend or say isn't going to work
absolutely
for kids,
from a tabletop perspective, because I get like standard D&D is probably going to come down to the DM and the themes they feel like including. So it's a little bit harder.
You wouldn't run a mixed table. It'd be very difficult to run a mixed table of like adults and kids. So often, if you're playing D&D with kids, you're playing it with like a bunch of kids, and it's very age appropriate. So young kids, you dumb down the rules a little bit more. You take out the D20 and you actually just roll with like a D6 and stuff like that. So way simpler for them to like actually be able to physically do it mathematically and all the rest of it. It's not so complex. And then you just simplify everything. So you may not even have player deaths. Maybe they just get knocked out and then they have to be revived after the fight and things like that. So there's not like such dire consequences.
Pokemon rules. You got to go see Nurse Joy.
You've passed out and you wake up at the
you wake up in the closest town. Yeah, something like that. So it's definitely all age appropriateness. If they were all 12-year-olds and whatever, maybe you'd have the consequences a little bit more dire. I guess you just build it around them. But that's the greatest part about D&D is that it can be based around people. So for us, it's just anything goes and it's just wild as heck. And, that's fine.
We let the grotesqueries fly. Like,
and I think that's what makes it
describe them. That ruins the point of the episode. He's like, speaking of those grotesqueries.
What? I didn't describe anything.
Yeah, like we don't have any boundaries, but I think that's the best part about D&D is that we can you create boundaries where they're needed. So I've played tables with adults that have set boundaries in the beginning. So they've just said, hey, like, not comfortable talking about this, and this. So certain topics, we just didn't go with them. So I didn't put certain things into the game just because they weren't comfortable with things that they've experienced in their life. So
that seems completely reasonable.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I think
everyone's got
that's
to
the
have
best
fun at
part
these.
about it. Well, that's right. You don't want people uncomfortable. You don't want, kids being scared to even walk outside because like the tree's going to eat them and throw them under its undergarment and, all sorts.
I get that reference.
Yeah,
Brady,
you do.
I did. I just
Brady's
thought
like
it was
super
just
confused.
not good.
Like,
I just thought it was not good.
I'm just keeping it PG, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Use a bigger word. That's what'll sort it out. Yeah.
So that's
what else?
I think that's an easy one. Like, as far as tabletop goes, like D&D is always going to be a winner for kids and for adults. So that's an easy win.
Heck, you look at Stranger Things, like the whole thing started with them as like 11-year-olds playing D&D by themselves. Like
that's right.
They created the world that they wanted to and played in that. And that's exactly it. That's the blessing of that. Like, but in saying that, that's kind of one of the best things about rating systems. So I've been a big critic of certain points of rating systems, at least for gaming in Australia, especially with our issues with the R-rated system. And from there is also a good element. So if there are certain things that you just do not want to see, they're usually labeled there on the rating, because it's not always about whether you're young or old. Sometimes you just don't want certain things in your games.
That's exactly
right.
I
mean, we spoke about something from
individual.
All our fields that we've banned, not because of our age, or not banned, but we've decided we're not interested in, not for any other reason than it just doesn't appeal to us. And this is kind of the same topic, except we're kind of talking based on what we think parents should recommend to their kids, or at least giving options as such. I
think one we skipped over with gaming would be pretty much most sports games are a safe bet for kids as well.
They're
like
real safe.
Almost anything is pretty much safe there, and the Tony Hawk games for the most part I think are okay, aside from maybe the undergrounds, or you get up to a bit of mischief, but
but it's obvious because it's over the top part. I think like it's not, you can't go out and do a grind with Benjamin Franklin and create a thunderstorm. Like I think most of it's pretty over the top, just enough to keep it out of arm's reach.
Although I would love to see a kid try and recreate that.
No, don't say that.
Grinding with a kite.
A kite holding a key.
What else was there? In terms of gaming, I mean, I think the vast majority of Nintendo. I'm dying. Sorry, guys. A lot of Nintendo products in general are aimed at being family friendly. So from a gaming point of view, double check, of course, but I think the vast majority of what you see come out on a Nintendo console is going to be sitting in that aimed at your kids or family times.
Switch is a very good example of that. It's the newest one for these guys, and it's just you go to the game shop now and you go looking for a kid game, and I've got an Xbox, and it's like, all right, we've got 3 to choose from. Like there's like a My Little Pony game, and there's TMNT, which I already have, and then there was like a Smurfs game. I'm like, oh, cool. And then you go to Switch, and it's just like a wall full of color, and it's just every other game is just inviting as heck for kids to.
What about the negative side? So like stuff that's aimed at kids that maybe shouldn't be for the last couple of minutes. So like I think
Conker's Bad Fur Day was a it looked like a kid's game. It had a rating on it, but it looked like a kid's game.
So
I don't think they're to be blamed for that. I think that was an advertisement issue.
Intentional thing.
No, not necessarily. So the company that made it was Rare. Rare as in the people who did Donkey Kong and all that sort of stuff. One of Nintendo's biggest third-party publishers through Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 era. They wanted to make a game that was sort of a bit out there, but they had a style, and that was the style that they used, which later was used for, like, I think they did Banjo-Kazooie as well and stuff like that.
They sure did.
And it's that big bubbly-eyed characters, the anthropomorphic animals and stuff like that. They just wanted to go a completely different direction. So they were using their art style for a completely different concept. So
Yeah.
the illusion that people think that it's a child's game is just based on the art style that they chose.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I don't think that's inherently on them.
No, not at all.
I'm just trying to think of other examples of games that would look child friendly that
I don't know about an example exactly like that, but I was thinking of, from like a lot of parents' point of view, all the phone and phone adjacent consoles that have ads and things for micro purchasing and stuff like that. I have a big dislike of that.
Microtransactions, that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yeah,
it is, but in a kid's game especially, or a game that's quite obvious for kids, like a lot of these iPad tablet-y games with like, get the shark to eat the letters or whatever, are like, do you want to buy this skin for $1? And it's like obvious a kid's going to be playing it and they're just going to test, yes, I want that. And mum and dad's credit card gets hit and there's no sense of responsibility.
There's a whole like legal thing working on that at the moment anyway. So there are legal avenues that certain countries are putting in place to prevent things like that getting worse.
Yeah, it's out of hand. The only thing I can suggest with that is that people turn their internet off when their kids are playing. Like, we'll turn the Wi-Fi off of their tablet when kids are playing those games. So
disconnect any credit card details and stuff like that.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely.
I believe a lot of modern phones also have so I don't have children, as I've said 150,000 times. But I believe phones do have like child mode where it can prevent the purchasing of stuff. And
that's a good idea.
So that might not be a bad option.
No, that's a really good idea.
I mean, we've spoke about how anime ratings could definitely be better because sometimes they're a bit of a punch in the face. But they're kind of hard because I think it's very similar to the same thing as Conker's Bad Fur Day. I think the art style can sometimes be a bit elusive to what the content is going to be.
But
so just watch a show before you recommend it to a kid if it's outside of the few things we've mentioned.
Yeah,
that's probably your best bet.
Yeah, that, or like try and find a more westernized ratings system or even reviews. Like there are some really good review websites around.
Yeah.
So if that's sort of
watch a couple and then you'll kind of get the general idea. Like don't watch one because it could be pretty biased. Like, I do what I do when I go to buy a game, watch about 5 reviews and then decide on whether or not I want to spend like $10.
That is the most Justin thing I've ever
That is such a just
100%.
You spend more of what your hourly rate would be looking it up than buying it.
Yep.
That is actually factual, yeah.
Yeah, legit.
Actually, before we round it out, I'm just going through my list of like most played games on Steam. Pretty good child-friendly game, Bastion. I've mentioned it before.
You've mentioned it before. I need to get onto this. Yeah.
It's a freaking brilliant game. Doesn't really delve too much into like dark themes or anything. It's very bright, visually attractive. There's no profanity. There's barely any dialogue at all. And it's just a really fun little game to chip through I think I finished it in under 4 hours. So
difficulty curve's not too bad either.
I think it's more the length. There's a bit of difficulty, but it's sort of very late game.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
So something like that. But there's plenty out there if you're looking around for kids, and you don't just have to go the safe option and just buy Mario's Next Adventure or
100%. Yeah, you don't have to play it too safe, but
Oh, you're leaving your part of that recording.
Yeah. You don't have to play it too safe. You just have to not be present for the end of the episode.
He's gone.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It is. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Justin might.
Who knows? Maybe you'll get one internet.